Hi, this is Vivian from PharmaSalon. Before you watch, I want to let you know that if you're interested in getting a CE credit for this video, go to the show notes below. There's a link to the Compounding CE website that will take you directly to the quiz for this class. The show notes also include the questions on the quiz, so be sure to check them out. While you're there, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel.
Welcome to Corrective Actions and Documentation. I'm Vicki Caldero, Senior Quality Assurance Specialist, and this presentation is being hosted by PharmaSalon. Welcome. I wanted to thank you all for your attendance today in support of PharmaSalon. I'm Vicki Caldero, and I'm honored to have been asked to speak with you all today on the subject matter of corrective actions and documentation. I'm a quality professional with over 15 years experience, and the last 8 years have been with the 503B arena. Over the years, I've attended many FDA listening sessions. I have watched this industry form. I have seen guidance turn into regulation. So I'm very pleased to be here today, and let's get started, jump right into it, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some questions for you and shed a little light on the differences between corrective action versus preventative action and how to properly document.
I have no conflict of interest.
So today's learning objectives. We're going to go over how to know the purpose of corrective and preventative action, have the ability to distinguish between the two and each defined term, the documentation. That includes communications, reviews, and activities, and be aware of the compliance concerns as stated by FDA, things your state pharmacy boards are going to be looking for, as well as customer audits. Now, the purpose of the corrective action and preventative action subsystem is to collect and analyze information to identify actual and potential product and quality problems, to investigate product and quality problems and take appropriate action and effective corrective or preventive action. And again, there, notice that it's asking to take the appropriate action, whether it be effective, corrective, or preventative action. To verify or validate the effectiveness of corrective and preventative actions, to communicate corrective and preventative actions to the appropriate people, to provide information for management review, and to document activities. Now, all through today's discussion, you're going to see repetition in the effectiveness, validate, verify, communicate, management, and document. These are all things that are going to be mentioned all throughout, over and over again. So here's a little illustration on basic how to differentiate the difference between a corrective action and preventative action. So fire breaks out, your correction, immediate is the immediate response. There's a problem, what are we gonna do? We're not gonna hesitate, we're putting out that fire. Corrective action is after your investigation, what caused the fire, and how to prevent its reoccurrence. Keeping something happened, we corrected it, we're going to prevent its occurrence. So it's already happened. So we're focusing on that. So if you see the circle around the little guy's hand here, it looks like he's holding a cigarette. So no smoking near these boxes. A preventive action is to stop the fire from happening before the event. You don't wait for that fire to happen. Automatically in your warehouse space, you have a no smoking rule. So that is a twofold preventative, because after the correction, you see that they're going to state no more smoking here. Now the preventive action, having the sign. Again, what's the difference? A corrective action versus a preventive action. The corrective action deals with a problem after the event. It corrects it. It is a reactive behavior. The preventative action deals with a problem before the event to prevent it from happening. So that is being proactive. So again, that is your no smoking sign before anything happens. The correction being, well, we've had a problem and we're not going to allow it to happen again. So, some definitions of the corrective action. A corrective action is an action to eliminate the cause of a detected non-conforming or other undesirable situation. That's straight out of ISO. Or a corrective action is realizing and defining a problem, containing the problem, determining its cause, and taking appropriate action to prevent it from happening again. Now, I've highlighted some key words of realizing and defining, containing, determining the cause, and action to prevent. So those are things we're going to discuss more in detail, because as I love my little illustration here, Buzz Lightyear, telling Woody that, you know, to be honest with you, that wasn't supposed to happen. And my goal is when something does happen, as QA, you don't have that look like Woody has on his face, because you shouldn't fear when things happen. You have a plan in place. We're going to dissect it, figure it out, and then we're going to move forward. So, the corrective action process, as stated in the CFR. Now, I like to quote, and I'm going to be in 21 CFR 820. I know a lot of you out there getting into the 503B are in 210 and 211 at all times, because this is manufacturing. No 820. 820 is referenced throughout the chapters of the CFR. The quality system regulation is well defined and it is enforceable throughout. So make sure that you really get to know this and what applies to you. It's a lot more detail of everything. So as stated in 21 CFR 820, the quality system regulation requirement procedures, meaning that you have to have procedures, is to establish and maintain procedures for implementing corrective and preventative actions. This is a direct statement. When they're looking at your QMS, they want to see its own defined SOPs and work instructions on how you handle corrective and preventative action. So the process broken down is: step 1, define the problem or nonconformity. Step 2, you want to contain it. Step 3, identify a root cause. And then finally, develop an action plan to prevent a reoccurrence. So number 1, define the problem. What does that mean? Well, describe it. Describe what happened. Identify what is wrong. Did you deviate from an SOP? Was there an unwanted result? What happened? Then detail it in quantifiable terms. Now, this is key when it comes to trending later on. So if you do this in the beginning of how it is that you can quantify what has happened, whether it's a risk assessment, if it's unit-based, if it's something that you can then give a result to, or something that you can state data, that's going to help later on trending for your efficacy of your system. Next, you want to contain the problem. So you want to do whatever that takes. Isolate the area, segregate products, cease a process that could lead to continuation of the error. So you now have a problem. You have defined the problem. You see what it is. Now you want to contain it. This is to make sure that it does not happen again. The investigative process is going to take some time. During that time, you do not want a reoccurrence. A lot of times people get hung up with, they wrote an SOP and they say that investigations have to be closed within 14 days. Your timeline and your aging when it comes to investigation is not something that you're going to be cited for unless it's egregious and you open things up and you don't ever come back to them. But when you're in the process of investigation, the main point is, as long as you do not have a reoccurrence while you're trying to close your kappa, you're going to be okay. So containment is key. I have seen places where they have been in the investigative process, they have a turnover rate, people left, this or that, and then it falls through the cracks. And next thing you know, when they start getting into their aging, they see that something that was started was never finished, yet it has happened again. And that right there is a cite on the 483, and it uses the word ineffective. And when they use the word that your process has been ineffective, that's not good. So my best advice is contain it. Make sure it doesn't happen until you get through. So now you're on to root cause analysis. You know what happened. You've contained it so that it's not going to happen again. Now we're going to try to figure out how this happened, why this happened. And I've given this illustration on different root cause analysis methods. There's no one right one. However you are comfortable in your facility, then go forth with it. I personally don't like having SOPs that confine you to, let's say, the 5 whys and have a checklist. Only the inquiring mind will solve a problem. And sometimes people get stuck on checking boxes and think, well, I asked 5 whys, I'm done. But you didn't necessarily answer fully the main why. So I would just say, utilize a root cause analysis method, but keep yourself open to continually go until you find a root cause. If you cannot find a root cause, then it is okay to have cause unknown. And, many a times that could be human factors, So if you have to put that, then that is okay. Then you work with that through your prevention of how to not happen again. If it's a cut and dry, then you're good. Okay, so you've identified your problem, you've contained your problem, you've done your root cause, so you know what caused the problem. So is the investigation complete? So the cause of non-conformities relating to product, process, and the quality system. Have you identified all of these? Because if something happens once, it may never happen again. But if it happens twice, it will most likely keep happening. So if you can sit back and give this to someone for review, and they can read through your investigation and know exactly what happened, when it happened, why it happened, and how it's not going to happen again, that's great. Then that is proving an effective quality system. So here, do you have any questions?
Gosh, I was so engaged in the presentation, I didn't realize that we were already at this part. I would love to know any kind of illustrative stories that you had. What have you seen, or what would be a solid example of this?
Okay, well, I had encountered a client that was experiencing some OOS results on a product that they had made because they sent the product out for their QC testing. They did not do in-house, they used a third-party lab. So it turns out through root cause, we found that the product was not being held at the proper temperature. And I was able to come to that conclusion through stability studies that we had done, forced degradation of the product through temperature. And I just could lay those peaks right on top of each other. And it showed clearly that the product was not maintaining its temperature. It was getting too hot. So that situation, corrective action. The preventive action, had we had known that it was so sensitive and where it was going and the handling, you could easily put a temp recorder in the packaging. So that is something beforehand to say, this is a process that we're going to follow. That way we can assure that it is always held at a proper temperature. So it alleviates having to have the problem. So that's one illustration of the difference between a corrective and preventative. Another one that I could give you, as I've mentioned previously, is going into a clean room, going into an aseptic environment. Believe it or not, the gowning is a preventative action. You do not want to cause any contamination, so you gown. That might seem funny to some people to say that as if that's just like a no-brainer, but that is a preventive action. You don't wait for your EMs to come back. You don't wait to find bacillus all over your clean room for a corrective action to then tell you that you need to gown. So when you think of them that way, is preventative really being preventative and the correction being when a problem happens. But that's now not to say once you have a problem, now, yes, you are going to go into a preventive action.
I remember somebody once telling me, and I don't remember who it was, but they were telling me that this pharmacy had somebody kept the dog next to them when they were doing stuff in the labs.
In the lab. Okay. Well,
yes. I guess the corrective action there would be to keep the dog out, and the preventative action would have been the obvious, no dogs allowed.
No dogs allowed. And very much so.
Have you seen any outrageous examples like that? I mean, the gowning seems pretty obvious.
The gowning does seem pretty obvious. There are things that I have seen where it's just, unfortunately, I have seen where subject matter experts have moved up, and that's great. And exactly. And I think one of the parts that is part of this salon series is going to be promoting from within. So I have seen that, promoting from within. I've seen, unfortunately, when those have been promoted and out of the rooms, they forget being in the room, and now they're trainers. And all of a sudden, they floated out of training themselves and requalifications. Mm-hmm. So I've seen some places where it's, well, we qualified them initially. Well, they've been here for 3 years. Where's your media fills or where's your qualifications? And it's, well, we qualified when in the beginning, and it's, well, you have to continue because those are exactly, that's a preventative action from a correction just waiting to happen. You know, is putting those systems in place because everybody needs a refresher. Mm-hmm. And just to keep up on it. And when you go out and it's you hear it all the time of, well, it's been a minute since I've had to do that or that I have done that. So it's good to go back and revisit to keep those in place.
So basically training is part of the preventative.
Yes, 100%.
Ongoing training. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Thank you. I'll let you, let me think. I don't think I had any other questions. Oh, you know what? You talked a little bit about written procedures before gowning. So again, that brings me, actually, it does bring up a question between written procedure, SOPs, and training and the preventative actions. Does it all, the SOPs are all there for the preventative actions, right?
Yes.
And then once you have the SOPs, you also have the training that will then re-emphasize what's in the SOPs as part of the preventative action. And then I'm assuming that the SOPs also then address corrective actions should problems arise.
Yes, because, and using gowning as an example. So you have your procedure for your gowning, and then this is a perfect way to put it, because then you have to gown and you're plated. So now you're counting your CFUs. And in that SOP, you're going to have your limits. What's an acceptable limit? What's an action? What's an alert? So that is quantifiable data. So you actually have something tangible. That is what is proving that your actions are working. So if you're following this SOP on how to gown, doing the gowning, and you're taking those samples and you're coming back with that data to show 0 CFUs, that proves that what you wrote in that SOP is valid. That is good. So yes, that's perfect.
So I know you're supposed to update SOPs once a year, and I'm pretty sure nobody does from what I've talked to people. How often should you realistically update your SOPs? Because you mentioned 3 years with the training, and since the SOPs are the SOPs tied into training, like people update their SOPs, are they then also training, or are the two not necessarily connected?
If you're updating an SOP, if you're changing a process, then anyone who is required that knowledge for their job description, yes, there needs to be training on that. Now, it could just be a read and understand. That's fine. I understand, yes, it's hard. Everybody with the annual review of SOPs, really, depending, I would say prioritize that to keep those going. And the quality unit, that's where a lot of internal audit comes in, picks out the ones that has to. And sometimes through a corrective action, if something has happened and part of the preventative action is, well, we need to change the procedure, then that is something. And then you'll have to keep an eye on that one. If you change a procedure as part of your corrective and preventative action, your kappa, then that one is going to elevate out of just your annual review. You're going to need to look at that and trend that to show the efficacy of the correction.
Okay. And then my question was also the flip side. If you're not updating your SOPs, let's say you go through them and you're like, they're fine, then do you need to do more regular training just so, to keep that fresh, or do you only train when you update the SOPs?
Oh, no. No.
And that might just be a naive question on my part because I'm not actually involved in this.
Okay. So if you review your SOPs, review them annually, not necessarily updating. If nothing changed, you review them, you're still in compliance. And that is something. I mean, if you have got it dialed in and you're not changing your process at all, that's great. That's everybody's goal. It's a validated system. You're going forth with it. What you do want to make sure as part of quality and regulatory is that you remain in compliance. And especially here in the world of the 503s, we have seen so much change, guidance turning into regulation. What once was, they've tightened that up now. So now you were allowed some SOPs that were pretty vague and pretty gray because everybody was kind of figuring it out. And exactly now, if you're only in production for a year, 18 months, you don't really even have trending yet. So you hit that 2-year mark. Now you have something to get, you have some history to say, okay, what's working out? So if you're not changing them, review them to make sure that you remain compliant for where you're at. And then, yes, most people, what they do, if it's a smaller staff, I've seen where at least monthly, there will be some type of GMP or compliance training for the facility. If it's a smaller group of people, that could be headed by a quality department or a PIC to just say, hey, listen, guys, this is, you review that, you document it, get a group training form involved. They love to see that. The FDA has a bunch on YouTube now. Pull those up, have a group there. They'd be ecstatic that you're actually taking their words and training your staff on them. So I would just say, yes, for the SOPs, have something, training, something maybe monthly for compliance, and for those in more defined positions, depending on the position, but they should be, yes, go back, read the SOP, even every 6 months, just require them to say, hey, you have to read it. I mean,
okay,
it'll keep them up.
All right, great.
So.
Now I really am done with questions. I'll let you go on with the rest of your presentation.
Okay. Okay, so again, I've shown this, the illustration, because we're discussing the corrective actions today and a problem happened. We've identified the problem, contained the problem. Now we want to prevent the problem. So we are going to move on to a preventive action phase. This is the written procedure on how you are not going to allow the problem to happen again. So this is not a preventative action without a problem. This is the prevention of the current problem. So the preventive action aims to correct potential problem. Unlike the corrective action, which fixes the root cause of a current issue, preventive actions try to address problems before they happen. So this is what I'm discussing. It happened, now we want to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's why I have the knowledge without action is pointless, and action without knowledge is dangerous. So if you know that something has happened, then you want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Okay. This is an ISO requirement for preventive action. The steps to take to achieve preventing a potential nonconformity. The potential problem is articulated based upon evidence. The cause of the potential problem is investigated. A plan of action is developed and implemented, and the results of action taken are reported, and the outcome is reported to management. So again, we're looking for data to show that the problem, the plan of action is implemented and the results of action are reported. And obviously the goal is that there's nothing to report. You don't want to see an error brewing or something popping up again. Okay, so here we are to the questions. So just to reiterate, if you could say true or false, ISO defines a corrective action as an action to eliminate the cause of a detected nonconformity or other undesirable situation. The answer would be true. A corrective action is to eliminate the cause of a detected nonconformity or other undesirable situation, because it is detected, which means it happened. Next question. The requirement for corrective and preventative action can be found in 21 CFR Part 210, good manufacturing practices in manufacturing, processing, packaging, or holding of drugs. B, 820, the quality system regulation. C, 314, applications for FDA approval to market a new drug. Or D, 110, current good manufacturing practice in manufacturing, packaging, or holding human food. The answer would be B, 820, the quality system regulation. So now let's talk about documentation. We've done all this great stuff. So you've got all your documentation, got to get it together and be able to present it for review. And that's something that I want to drive home to you, is that what you're doing, and we very easily forget that we're in it every day, so we're used to it. The words that we use, the acronyms that we use, we just take it for granted, that second knowledge of, well, that's just what it is, or that's what we do. So when you're doing your documentation and you have to hand that over, you want your documentation to have all activities in their results to be well defined and well articulated, so that somebody who has no knowledge can read what happened and they can tell it back and understand what has happened. So I'm just going to read: documenting corrective actions and preventative actions activities, as stated directly from CFR, is document all activities required under this section and their results, which means everything you do. So this is going to include your system procedures, like we spoke in the beginning. Start from the beginning. So they're going to want to look to see you have a procedure in place. They're going to look to see that you followed that procedure. Your document control of kappas. So that's going into, you have a controlled system. When they come to you, as they will, and they will say, let me see 6 kappas or your whole list or from these days. So have a numeric system in place to where you can pull them up. Show the data. Now, whether your data be photos of a broken piece of equipment. I've seen a leg fall off of a table, which caused, IV bags to fall all over the floor. If it is LOS results, anything that you are including in your investigation that help you come to the conclusion, show that data. Now, your trend reporting. So what are you extrapolating out of that data to show the evaluation of the situation and the efficacy? So you're going to take that data, you're going to document how you're going to prevent this from happening. So your data all throughout. So you want to be able to prove that the system is effective. So that trending to show that. And actions verified or validated. If you had a process in manufacturing that has gone a complete awry, and you're in a situation to where you have to change a piece of the process. Let's say that manipulations of caps on top of vials, you just can't do it. You can't maintain the proper first air, so you're going to go to a different system or a different cap. So you have to validate the process over again. So anything that has been changed that requires validation, you have to go through and make sure you document that for reporting. So now, Now you have things documented. Well, who needs to know? So department heads, obviously, direct personnel, any procedural changes that are happening, and management. And I have the asterisk on management because directly from the FDA, they state that the FDA emphasizes that it is always management's responsibility to assure that all non-conformity issues are handled appropriately. So even if you have an investigative team or a quality team, it is always going to be management's responsibility to assure that non-conformities are handled appropriately. So management needs to be part of the final sign-off of any procedural changes as well. If something is going to happen, they should be signed off with department heads. And this goes back to, Vivian, what we were discussing before as far as training. So the information spread to direct personnel, absolutely. If there's been a change in the process, there should be training for the people who are going to be doing it. I have unfortunately also witnessed some people saying, I didn't know that there was a change until they got in to do what was no longer supposed to be done. So, oh, what happened? Okay, next knowledge question. What corrective action activities are required to be documented to demonstrate that the manufacturer's quality system is effective? A, the immediate action or correction. B, kappa efficacy analysis. C, root cause analysis. Or D, all of the above. And the answer being D, all of the above. And the CFR states, document all activities and their results in order to demonstrate to the FDA that the manufacturer's quality system is effective and enables the manufacturer to identify problems quickly and implement effective corrective and preventative actions. So this is straight from the FDA Office of Communication and Education. And he made a statement of manufacturers should consider that their corrective action and preventive action documentation can demonstrate to the FDA that the manufacturer's quality system is effective and enables the manufacturer to identify problems quickly and implement effective corrective and preventative actions. So that's like what I said before. Make sure that your documentation paints the whole picture, tells the whole story, and is able to describe it and show how you've corrected it and how you can handle it if it shows up. Okay, this came straight from the FDA's website. I put the link on the bottom. It goes straight to them, and this is them stating when they come, their objectives, their inspection objectives are to verify that the kappa system procedures that address the requirements of the quality system regulation have been defined and documented. So number one, they're going to look to see that you have SOPs addressing your system. Determine if the corrective and preventative actions were effective and verified or validated prior to implementation. Confirm that corrective and preventive actions do not adversely affect the finished device. Again, they use the word device because they're talking about 820, but that goes for product. So they want to make sure that you have a corrective and preventative actions. And within that, those actions are not going to adversely affect further actions downstream that could affect product. So verify that corrective and preventative actions for product and quality problems were implemented and documented. Again, with knowledge comes responsibility. They're going to look to see if a problem has happened, what did you do about it? Did you initiate a corrective and preventative action? Determine if information regarding non-conforming product and quality problems and corrective and preventative actions has been properly disseminated, including dissemination for management review. So they're going to, again, look at that. They're going to look at the implementation. They're going to look to see if there was proper training held, where are those training records, and who did you train? They don't care if the bookkeeper needs to know about, the cleaning in the clean room. That's the wrong person to be training on that environment. So, and again, they're going to make sure that management was well aware of it, because they don't want to be sitting there and have somebody say to them, we didn't know. And I'm sure nobody in a management position wants to find out that people on the floor are doing something that they are unaware of.
I have a question for you. It says content current as of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does FDA often just leave their stuff up there for years and never update it, or never even update the date?
Yeah. Usually if we have things within 10 years.
Okay.
Then, then that's why I've been pretty impressed with the 503s. I've attended the listening sessions in the beginning, and that was 2015, 16, and they've been pretty responsive. They were talking a lot, they were doing a lot. So by the time that we got regulation, I was pretty impressed. I was pretty impressed that they got it done within 7 years, because everything about 10. That's what we all think. We're all,
okay.
What's current, but.
All right, good.
Well, and that's the end of my presentation today. I hope I was able to shed some light on the topic. I'm sure that everybody has had some experience with it. So this is an area that has been solid and has not changed. It's not something that has come back with revisions or updates, or now all of a sudden we're going to change the process. The kappa process has been in place for a long time, and it's going to stay this way, because inevitably things are going to happen. And that's okay, as long as you maintain control and document.
It seems pretty straightforward. You've got a problem, you investigate the problem, and you evaluate it, you document it, and you correct it. So what is it why is it such a challenge? And because so many people said to me, we must cover kappa. But looking from the outside in, it seems like a fairly straightforward thing. So why the demand to go over this over and over again?
I think because what happens is you have a stranger coming into your house, and they're asking, well, how do you know? Over and over. And you're saying, because I know, because I'm familiar with this. I've seen this. I worked through it. I did this. I'm sure. And they're going to say, well, how do you know? Well, how do you know? So it really is in that presentation. So it is in that documentation. Write everything down, as much data as you possibly can, so that they don't ask you the 5 whys on what you're presenting them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those little pieces that I think everyone thinks that they've done a great job, and they've been very thorough, and they've gone through everything. But again, they're familiar with their environment. So
is that why you said look at it, take out all the lingo and everything like that, and look at it so you can explain it so anybody could understand the problem?
Yes, take it so that they can look at it and understand that problem, and it's okay. I've seen a lot of people make it so they almost want to make it seem like it's not that bad. And I'm not saying that it is so bad, but just be all inclusive to everything that it is. And
So
that's
you're saying
okay. Don't hold back. Don't hold back and be like, oh, that's gonna look bad. The only thing that looks bad is no action, complacency.
Who is the person who's normally filling out these forms then?
It really depends on organizational structure. Some people are going to have a separate quality unit. Some people are not. They're going to be smaller. So obviously, wherever the problem occurs, if it happens at that stage, it should be reported immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is a quality system in place to where you have an incident report, people call them all different things, then that starts it. And that could be up for review to say whether or not it's going to go further into, is this a deviation? Is this a corrective action? Like, is this a non-conformity at all? So it really depends on the organization how that's going to be. But at every step of the process, there should be somebody of authority to stop that process if need be. And that is something where quality and manufacturing butt heads everywhere. Everybody who's watching, everybody has that problem.
So wait, all right. So then talk more a little bit about that quality and manufacturing. When you say stop the process, you mean the quality person has to say stop manufacturing?
Yes, they absolutely has to have the authority to stop that. And that is every manufacturer's absolutely not like they want to fight that, because obviously you want to go through and it causes downtime. It can stop a process. But the whole purpose of a quality unit is to be at that arm's length to do exactly that. Is that if there's a problem or if it's leading towards a problem, then it stops. And you see that I know that here we're discussing drugs, but in the food world, immediately, if things start coming out wrong, they don't care if it's halfway through. They're gonna start shutting it down before the problem gets worse or at all. They'll correct it on the line. So here, same thing. If there's a major issue, somebody has to be able to throw up a flag and say, hey, listen, either stop what you're doing right now, let's just take a minute, figure this out, or notify and do something. Somebody has to be designated.
Again, do you have any examples? Can you think of anybody where they did have this argument and what had happened and how it got resolved?
Oh, for production versus quality? Oh.
I'll take that as a too many to think of.
Yeah, well, I had one most recently, and this was incoming. So problem being that they had switched a product that it's a reagent. So it's laboratory. So they had reagents that they just purchased and used because they were easy. Back in the day, they had reagents where they had to reconstitute. So they eliminated that process because it just took way too long to get the powders in and do this whole process. They put that to bed and they made the change to pre-purchase. Okay. Well, now we're in a situation to where everybody's on back order. You can't get anything, yada, yada, yada. So they want to now purchase the dry and reconstitute. As quality is saying, well, what? And they're saying, well, we used to do it. So just resurrect the resurrect the procedure, which has since been obsoleted and archived. Just resurrect the procedure, we'll use it, and then you can put it back. But I know that's not how a quality system works. You can't, let things go and then resurrect them and whenever you need them. That's the whole not going to happen. And literally in less than 24 hours of when they already purchased something to come in, and it has to go through a quality check. So this isn't even, well, we used to do it type of a thing. So it could have saved a lot of heat at a production meeting because they thought that they could just do, like, what's the difference? Not understanding the quality point. And again, quality by design means it is built into your system. So it is not tested at the end. And sometimes production moves forward thinking, well, everything's fine. But if we don't pass those quality checks throughout, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say to people, what is tested is not sold, and what is sold is not tested. So that's why quality throughout the process is very important. And if quality starts falling anywhere through that process, stop it when you can, or identify where that's at and go from there. And it might not turn into a deviation, but if you see something, then it's a process improvement. Again, that would fall into a preventive action. An occurrence didn't happen, but you saw something that kind of looks like maybe it could. If it could, then that's a preventive action. You don't have to wait for it to happen. You can do something beforehand. And that is something that would lead to, like you were saying, reviewing an SOP and making that process improvement.
Okay, thanks. I have a question on one of the slides earlier on, the diagram that had all the arrows with the 5 whys.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go back to that? There, that's the one. You said something at the end that made me think of this, because you talked about a little about, going through all of this and not just checking the boxes or finding your 5 whys, but you didn't really talk about each one of these things. And I'm wondering if you could just do a quick mention. Is it just me, or do people know what all of these things are?
I would think that most people would know.
Okay.
What everything is.
So let's talk. So do they boil into the 5 whys? Why don't you just kind of explain this diagram a little bit more?
Okay. So, it's just the different methods. So,
right.
So a fishbone diagram is pretty much just more of an illustration. You're going through and you're saying,
that's kind of what I'm getting at. Are these all various ways to get to the 5 whys, different ways to kind of illustrate how it is? So basically, when you point to the 5 whys, that's just you want, and all these other things are ways to illustrate to get to that point.
Yes. So they're just different ways to get to that root cause. Okay. So that's why
you say root cause analysis methods. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's good reading here. And I guess, different companies just have their kind of favored way of drilling down.
Yeah. And back to what you were saying about, why everyone's going, oh, well, we got to go over kappa. We got to go over kappa, because this is key to having them come and say, well, how do you know? Well, how do you know? If you pick an actual method and say, you know what, I understand. I like this one. This one seems pretty good. This one seems pretty thorough. All right, this makes sense for what we're doing. Then go with that. Familiarize yourself with that. Get one that you like. Like I said, a lot of people go with the 5 whys because that also ties into, I think, Six Sigma uses it. So, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert on that at all. So if in the SOP you can say not just the blanket statement of, and then do root cause analysis, but you say, we do root cause analysis utilizing this method. Train people and teach people on the 5 whys.
Have you seen a favored way? I mean, you say you like the 5 whys. So is that a favored way? And do companies teach, pick a methodology and then teach the team how to use it? Or is it usually each person who does their own reports is left up to doing their own method?
Well, I would say the smaller companies just make the blanket statement of a root cause analysis, and because it's not defined. So those are just investigative, and everything there. But larger companies that have designated quality units, they do more address the root cause analysis method. I have seen some places which just say it's handled by the investigation team. Then I've seen other ones to where exactly like they have a whole SOP just defining the 5 whys and their forms. The investigative form is built around that. So the people who are doing that, the investigators within the company, as they're filling out their form in master control or EDQ, TrackWise, those forms are built to answer those questions that are in the process. So they do more training. And I would say no matter what the organization's size is, again, management come with QA, get an understanding of how it is that you're going to go around it and follow format and do that. And again, like I said, within that, always know that sometimes you can go on further. This is your start. This is where you're at. These are proven analytical methods that have been used, which is why I said that the kappa process hasn't changed. It's not going to change. So these are things that have been used for a long time.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time and the thoroughness of the presentation. Do you have any parting words for anybody?
I just want to say thanks. Thanks again for joining. Thank you, Vivian, for doing this. I think this is great. I was really honored that you asked me to do this. I hope it was okay. And best of luck to everybody out there. And the 503 world is near and dear to my heart. And I'm very happy that it has come this far, this quickly, and just keep going. I believe in it. There's a great need for it. It's not going away. Don't fear, reach out. It's really grown exponentially, but yet I still feel like it's this little communal niche in pharma. So reach out to fellow colleagues and everybody else.
Thank you for watching. Remember, if you would like ACPE credit for this lecture, click on the link below and register for the class. You won't have to watch the video again, just answer the quiz questions. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so you can be updated on all our latest content.